So I finished playing Narcosis, and I'm gonna tell you what I think of the game. In short, it's shit. But let's go with an objective overview of the negative sides first. Now, this game puts you in this half-ton suit in which you gotta traverse through water, and you have to manage your air supply, and you have a small boost which helps you move forward. You have a single attack type, and you can also throw flares just to illuminate areas. Now, the flares are a mechanic which will essentially never be necessary in the game. It exists, you can do it, it does nothing except make things a little bit, illuminate things, but you can always actually handle it one way or the other simply because your suit actually has a lamp. So, the flare is just an extra. I tried it in several different locations. It's absolutely useless. So I'm going to start with the flares. If you're going to give me a mechanic in a game, make it useful for something. Make it at least scare the enemies or something. We're in super deep waters. You would assume, and I'm not a marine biologist, but you would assume that light would scare most animals. I've watched actually deep water exploration videos, and most fishes and stuff run away from light if they're illuminated directly. So if you throw a flare in its feet, and in the case of a crab for example, it will usually run away. That's how it should act, but these don't really give a fuck. So yeah, flares don't do anything. Then you have platforming in this game, and platforming is horrible because you don't really have a jump. You have these thrusters that just elevate you slightly and then you drop again, and you have a cooldown there. That means that when you jump from A to B, you have to take breaks in between so that the thrusters can fill up, and those breaks aren't too long, but why should I? And the game also breaks its own rules. At one point it gives you limitless thrusters, but that's just for this one segment of the game. And we can say that this is a hallucination or something like that, so that's okay, but I'm just saying, generally I didn't find platforming enjoyable at all. The game feels really weird with it. It feels out of place and just really, I don't know, when you make platforming and you have really bad movement, platforming is not a right choice. And unfortunately, this game offers a lot of this stuff that just doesn't work well, and that's its main problem. Gameplay-wise, the game is just terrible altogether. Platforming is just one of the segments that are bad, but you will notice that pretty much everything you do in the game will be kind of bad. The next point that I want to make is that the graphics are really ugly and feel really dated. Now, I can assume this has been made because the game is kind of, primarily perhaps designed to be used with VR headsets. I don't have a VR headset, can't afford one, but, I assume it would be more interesting with one, but the game still looks bad. You're underwater and everything feels bland, If you've ever watched a video of underwater recording, you will notice that everything's so vibrant and interesting there. There's so much stuff going on. And here there's almost nothing going on. It feels like you're just running through caves and stuff. It's just really boring, low resolution graphics that are not interesting no matter how much you crank up the game. And again, it could be a performance thing just so that it runs better on computers when you're using a headset, a VR headset. I don't know, I don't have one, but in any case, in these type of games, they can just, make like a VR mode where the graphics are downgraded, and I don't know, stuff like that. I've seen games with VR support which apparently have much better graphics. I'm saying apparently because I haven't played them myself, but I've seen videos of them, and I think that this was just due to costs, because this is kind of an indie game. Okay, so moving on, combat is terrible. Combat really sucks, and it sucks on so many levels. First of all, you have your enemies are a few, actually one type of fish, two types of squid, cuttlefish, and I think an octopus, but I'm not sure, and crabs, giant mud crabs. Well, actually they're coconut crabs if you want to be specific, but the game calls them spider crabs. In any case, the crabs, there's no real combat there because the crab one hits you. If you go too close, you're dead. So that's not really combat. But the fish and the squid you can actually fight. You get this tiny knife. And the problem with this combat is that you can't just slash your knife and, attack the fish this way. The fishes and the squid will actually charge you. So they stand like 2 meters away from you, and suddenly they will bolt towards you. And you have to press the button on your mouse and time it perfectly with the animation of the strike, so that you strike the fish exactly when it's at a certain distance from you. Otherwise, you either strike in front of it or behind it and the fish hits you. And there's another thing when they bolt at you, and this is really stupid. The squid, for example, will grab onto you and just stick onto you, and I guess it's biting you or something. I mean, it's a 500 kilogram suit. I don't see how a fucking squid could do anything to it, but it grabs onto you and it tries to bite you. And in the meantime, you're straight out stabbing it from the side. So you're giving it stabs throughout its body several times before it releases. And the squid's cool, you know. The squid can do this 3 to 4 times before it's dead. But if you just manage to slash it as it charges at you, just a gentle slash, it will usually die from 2 slashes. But sometimes it takes 3. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe there are different types of squid. But the point is that it's unrealistic. And why exactly are you being attacked by these small marine animals? They have no chance of consuming you. They can't eat you. Even if the squid could kill you and so on, he can't eat you. You're giant. You're made of metal and stuff. And they would never act like this. They'd run as soon as they see you. Again, I've seen videos, you know, how these animals act. If it's much smaller than you, it's not gonna consider you prey because it's not. You know, you are much bigger. You are the predator, if anything. So that's kind of crazy, but okay, I guess they had to do something because the game's already boring as it is. But why is the combat so shitty? Now, don't get me wrong, once you get the hang of it, it's possible to land most hits. You gotta be really diligent and careful and it will work. But, you know, it still doesn't make the combat better. The fact that it's doable doesn't make it better. It just means that it's shitty but doable. So that's, I guess, some good of it. You're breathing, you have air, and depending on what you see or what's happening, your breathing will increase, and you know, because of your heartbeat and stuff, you will actually waste air through this, and you will lose your air supply faster. Now the good news is that I was never in a situation where my air actually ran out, and that means the game constantly provides you with air, so you don't actually have to worry that much about it. It's more like a simulated thing, and I'm glad about that. I really would have hated it if that was the case, because this is not a real survivor horror. This is more of a game, walk from A to B and listen to the narration. Very little in between, and whatever is in between is usually extremely boring. But my problem with this situation is that the game implements several strategies. In one part of the game, actually, it intentionally makes special kinds of because you have kind of hallucinations during the game. You see stuff that really isn't there, and you go through these like mazes that repeat and repeat and stuff. You have like you're in a place with 3 entries or 4 or 5 entries, and you have to go through the right one, otherwise you appear at the beginning where you started, you know. So it's a trial and error thing. I even actually think that you have to go through each of them. It's always the last one, because it just was really unlikely that I was so unlucky that every time was the last one. But okay, you know, let's assume that it's not. It really doesn't matter. In any case, at that segment of the game, you actually start getting tunnel vision. And it's not really tunnel vision because it's more like 2 black bars getting bigger and bigger and your vision becoming smaller in the middle. So it's not a tunnel, it's a flat screen. And what happens is you see less and less and less. You know, obviously the game is telling you you're about to die, but it's really disturbing. You can't see anything, and while I would agree that this is the point of it, it's not a good mechanic. You know, if I don't see what's happening 90%, you know, I will show you in the video actually how bad it is. But at some point you see so little that it's almost impossible to recognize what's happening. It's just annoying. It's not a good mechanic. Now, there's also logical fallacies. Lots of logical fallacies are here. For example, your character constantly hears people talking over comms, but he never responds. He doesn't tell them anything. And I don't care how you're gonna explain that. He goes through so much tech, and some of it works, although it's flooded. Even in the narration, they say most of the technology in there was watertight. So even though it was all flooded, some stuff really still worked just fine, and it does work. And I mean, if you can hear them over your comms, it's very likely that you can talk. I mean, okay, your microphone could be busted, but your character passes by so many other suits. Okay, actually, now that I think about it, they're all submerged. It's not like you can go out of the water, out in the water, switch into the other suit, close it, it will be full with water. So okay, that point is taken, I guess. But still, I don't like the fact that, you know, they have to make this artificial situation where there's no way to contact anyone else. and people are contacting him. People are telling him, "Oh, we see you on the radar. We're coming," and stuff like that. And nothing happens. He doesn't respond, and it's just bullshit. I didn't like that. I don't like when you build a story in such an artificial, unrealistic way. It just feels fake. They don't also give you a good explanation as to why he doesn't do it. He just doesn't. That's it. Now, the game offers, most of the part of the game is going to be, basically a large corridor through which you run through. But then there are these segmented parts where you have a larger area or several floors where you need to do something. But the game is really bad at telling you what you need to do. It kind of tells you do this, but it doesn't instruct you where to go. And it's not impossible, but it feels like you're just running stupid errands without enough information. So what happens is you walk from A to B, you press random shit, you scan people, stuff like that, and it works out, but it's a waste of time. And the worst thing about it is that in some areas, I think twice this happened, I actually got lost because, again, it's dark and your vision is so limited due to the bad graphics. I think they intentionally did this so that you don't notice how bad the game actually looks. So I actually got lost, and after spending 10 minutes, I figured out that I was again at where I started. And this is really bad because it's frustrating for the player. It's annoying. You don't want to do this because the player's like, what the hell? Why is this happening? Am I playing a game or what? It's not a labyrinth game. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a narrative, more of a Dear Esther kind of game. And it doesn't do it well. If you get lost and return to where you started, it's bad. It's just... they should have, in one part of the game, for example, they expect you to climb up somewhere. And it's extremely unlikely that you figure it out, and that's why they placed a special ghost. You see this ghost from time to time, helpful one. And when you see the ghost, when you look at him, he kind of moves in the direction he wants you to move. So they put a way of indicating where you need to go. And so that worked well. Why didn't they do that in this one area where you get lost? It's fucking bullshit. It's really stupid. And of course, getting lost is of course bad because you might actually drown due to lack of air. I got lost and I didn't get a chance to drown because one of those crabs got me instantly. But you shouldn't be getting lost. They could have indicated where to go. This was not fun like most of the game really. So I didn't like that. And the next thing is that the game on its own took me 3 hours to complete. And while the game is short, obviously 3 hours is very short, it actually felt very long because it wasn't fun. And that's the biggest problem they will have. They were not able to provide content and to pad out the game. And I get it that this is not an easy way to do a game like this, simply because this kind of game is carried solely by the presentation and the story. And if you want to see a good example of this, go and play Soma. Soma had much better graphics, somewhat more interesting gameplay. Not much really, the gameplay in Soma wasn't anything special, but the story was excellent. It was an awesome story, awesome narration. The whole thing really was done well, and it just felt well, and it was a great game. Took much longer to finish too, but I'm not picky. If Soma had been half the length, I would have still liked it because the story is king. I've said it multiple times. And the story in Soma is excellent. I actually recommend that you play Soma, not this, if you're curious about a similar game, which again is underwater and stuff. And that's a good one. So that's a good game worth getting. But this particular one, not good. And another thing is that this game is supposed to be scary from what I can tell. It even attempts to do jump scares, but it just doesn't work well. Sometimes it's actually funny even. It does have a certain atmosphere, but it doesn't deliver the scariness properly. And don't get me, I'm a veteran when it comes to scary games, so I'm not easy to scare. And while I will not be afraid of the game or not get really scared in 99% of the cases, I will still acknowledge that the game is scary. Like, I can objectively tell this game is actually scary. If I force my girlfriend to play it because she doesn't like playing scary games, my girlfriend would get scared of a scary game, even where I don't. I know that this would be the case. It's subjective. But this particular game is not scary. It's just, but it does have a vibe to it, like a more mysterious vibe, but it's not scary. Another thing that I really hated is that 30% of your screen is constantly not utilized, because you see a big part of your suit where you have your hood basically, but it's really huge and it takes really almost a third of your complete screen space, you don't see most of the stuff that's happening. You can't look down on the sides, unless you look up, because this fucking suit is taking up most of the space. And I assume again that this was done simply to improve performance. And those are really radical measures to improve performance during VR. Again, I don't have it, but I assume that this was the background for it. And if it is the case, I gotta say that it probably is because the game is poorly optimized. I don't know. I mean, I had over 200 frames, but and I have a mid-range PC, but I'm not doing VR. I actually don't know how heavy that would be on VR, so it's just an assumption. But in any case, why take 30% away from a screen? It's too much. Make it at least option. Like I have an option to do it, so that I can lower this thing so it doesn't take so much space. It really just takes away from the game. You see less, although there isn't much to see. I still would like to. The controls are really weird as well. Your mouse controls your mouse controls your head like you would control it in a VR game. That means that you would look around with the mouse, but your body does not move. It's not like in an FPS where you look to the right, you press W, and you walk straight in that direction. No, if you want to turn your body, you gotta use A and D. And that, unfortunately, means that you can't side strafe because you can only turn. You have essentially tank controls and head controls. Those are the two things. And personally, I did not like that. There were a few places where you actually had to react fast, and that this kind of gameplay, I wouldn't say it was frantic in the sense that I wasn't worried. Luckily, the respawn points are pretty close by, so that's a good thing. But we'll get to the good things. But these tank controls with the head movement just felt out of place. Most of the time I just played with the keyboard and almost didn't use the mouse. Just very minimal looking around out of curiosity or something like that. But most of the time, no. The puzzles, by the way, are also lame. And they don't work very well. You have this one puzzle where you need to figure out the code for a key lock. And the code is spread out through the room. And you need to just look around for random numbers, okay? And in one place there's a number, actually in several places there are numbers that are, pretty visible. You stay, you look at them, but the game doesn't acknowledge it. When it does, you see the number shine up and appear on the right side, like you got it, And I'm trying to figure out how to make the game recognize that I'm looking at the goddamn number. I see it, and it took me maybe 15-20 seconds to do this, and this was just too long. It should have worked better. I'm clearly standing in front of it looking straight at the dumb number, but the game doesn't recognize that. So the puzzles in the game are lame. You get, this is one of them, then you have another one where you have to do generators, and you have to start several generators which give a different voltage, and if you create too much voltage, then all that happens is you just reset the generator and you gotta start over. The thing is, the game doesn't really specifically tell you how much you need, so it's a trial and error thing. It's not difficult, and I got it after maybe 30 seconds or 40 seconds, I don't know. But it's not interesting either. It's just lame, and that's again one of the biggest problems for the game. It's not interesting. It just offers you a lot of boring, mundane things to do that are in no way entertaining. Oftentimes, I had no idea what I was doing. I just was doing stuff. I was scanning people and going back and forth, checking if something unlocked. Just the objective is while it is indicated on the lower left, it feels like it's very general, the description, and oftentimes, I gotta be honest with you, I wasn't paying attention to that much, so that might have been also my thing. Now, the ultimate thing down the line, the ultimate and worst thing about this game, that it's a boring game. It's a time-wasting game. Your suit, your character moves super slowly. He attacks super slowly. You have to wait between recharges for the boost, so that when you make jumps, you have to take breaks. If you don't wait for it to fully recharge, you're not going to make the leap of faith you need to the next platform. So the platforming is boring, the combat is boring and bad, the puzzles are really boring, the surroundings are uninteresting and uninspired. The game just really, really boring in every way, and unfortunately so is the story. The story at first seems ominous. You think, oh man, something's going to happen here. You're this underwater engineer. I think you're like a kilometer underwater and you're working for some facility, and then there's an earthquake and everything gets damaged and you're running to another facility to try to escape. And it feels like there's going to be a huge plot twist and something, and there is a plot twist. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who wants to try this game still. but the plot twist is lame. It's minimal and it's not so shocking. It's not so interesting, and it's kind of also obvious at some point because you hear as you play the game, you hear narration from the main character in an interview later on. They're like, oh, we're here with this guy, and he survived this and wrote the book. So you're like, oh yeah, I did. I'm gonna survive this. That's pretty certain. So the plot. So what's gonna happen is it's not gonna be a bad ending in the sense that I die, obviously. But you can tell as it goes on that the ending's not gonna be the best possible ending. There's gonna be some kind of plot twist, and it is. But again, it's really minimal, and you don't care about it. Like, let me just put it that way. The stuff that happens that is supposedly bad, it doesn't really feel like you should care much about it. It doesn't affect you. The game's world just doesn't manage to create that feeling. Now, while I did shit all over the game for 20 minutes, I want to go on quickly through the positive sides, because while it is a bad game, it's definitely a shitty game. I think that it does have a few positive sides. First and foremost, it's a cheap game. For $20 on Steam, you can get this, €20. And I think that the price is okay. I mean, the 3 hours gameplay seems a bit little. But if you go to the cinema to watch a new movie, you're gonna spend close to that much as well, with the difference that you will probably be entertained more. But yeah, it's cheap, so that's a plus. Another thing is that the game might probably be, and this is plus minus, I don't know, might probably be somewhat better on VR. Can't judge that very well, but I'm gonna assume that it's gonna be more atmospheric. I've had a chance to try Oculus, no, not Oculus Rift, the Vibe, I think it was the name, the HTC VR headset, and that one was really interesting. It was just a demo program, but it was fun. So I assume that this will be more interesting if you have a VR headset, and maybe even scary. I can't tell. The only thing that I found disturbing during the game and scary was really your own footsteps, because they're really heavy. And you make, unfortunately, this is, I think, a flaw more than a design flaw more than an advantage, simply because your footsteps sound always the same, no matter what kind of movement you do, forward, backwards, to the side, when you turn, when you land, it all sounds like you just made a single step forward, and that sometimes created in me the feeling that there's somebody behind me or something like that. So I would check, but then as I turn to check, I already hear that it's the same noise, and I'm like, oh no, that was 100% me. So also another thing, nobody else makes footsteps in the game. You see you have hallucinations of other people dressed like you, haunting you and stuff, but they make no footsteps. So I don't know why they skipped on this. This could have been a really good element to scare people. The other positive thing is that the game has good voice acting. It's not stellar, but it is okay. It absolutely works. You only hear, I believe, just your character and the woman interviewing them. But it's done well. It's interesting to listen to. Another thing that I really liked is once you beat the game, because throughout the game, throughout each segment, you hear just a part of the interview, and you will forget, because sometimes you will get lost and take too much time, or you're doing something else while they're talking. You can't listen as attentively as you would like, and you'll forget some of the stuff, so it doesn't feel like a coherent story from this. But after you beat the game, you can listen to the whole interview again as one piece, and that's much better. So I much prefer that. That's a good thing. The next thing that I liked was that it did have some interesting moments, some moments that were a bit more ominous. Usually during those hallucinations, it was kind of an Inception thing where you walk on the ceiling and the room bends in a weird way. It's like becomes Tumblr, and you just can go through it up and down. There's gravity feels out of place. This was an original idea, but it was not developed far enough. But still, it was interesting, so to some extent, so that I liked. The story does have a twist. I mentioned it before. It's not a good one, unfortunately. It's just a minimal one, but a twist in a story is always a good thing in my book. I like to be surprised by a story, even if it's a minor surprise with very little in terms of affecting you emotionally or in any other way. But still, a twist is a plus, so I'm gonna mention it. And all in all, it has some good ideas. The game does have some good ideas, but it doesn't implement them well. And the last plus that I want to describe is the fact that in your suit you have this HUD where it tells you how much air you have and stuff. and this stuff reflects on the glass. So even if you don't look down, you see your stats, but you see them reflected like in a mirror vision kind of way. But you get used to that, and you can still read them out if you pay attention. So you don't actually need to look down. And this sounds like a minor thing, but I like it because it's more immersive and looks realistic. So it's interesting, and I give the game a plus there too. All in all, I found it to be a bad game. I don't think that it's really worth your time. It definitely wasn't worth my time or my money. But if you do want to try it, if you think that this might still be interesting to you, more power to you. Give it a try. For me, it was boring, but let me know if you think otherwise, and if you've played it and enjoyed it. Obviously, if you take a look at the Steam reviews, there are a lot of people who disagree with me. So I'm curious to hear your arguments. And until then, I would like to tell you that I have some other videos if you want to take a look at them. Not all of them are about shitty games. Some of the games are really good, so I don't rant as much. And yeah, just take a look at my other videos, and thank you for watching this one so far, and have a great day.